This is Thomas's Sheep and the Spectacular Science Project. Thomas could not sleep. His first week as a new student at Apollo Elementary School had been a complete disaster. He worried about making friends, being late, and getting all of his homework done. In fact, Thomas worried so much that he was having trouble falling asleep at night. Unfortunately, he was getting some sleep in school, especially when Mr. Layne taught science. Science class was just after lunch, and the combination of Thomas's sleepless nights, his full stomach, and Mr. Layne's dry lectures put him to sleep nearly every day. There's Mr. Layne. Last Friday, he had toppled his entire desk when he fell asleep during Mr. Layne's talk on Halley's Comet. Thomas had righted his desk just in time to hear Mr. Layne's assignment. Every student had to create a science project on the solar system by next week. Here's him falling over. In order to show everyone what kind of student he really was, Thomas wanted to create a truly spectacular science project, and that's exactly what he set out to do. Every day after school, Thomas went straight to his room and finished all of his homework. Then, after dinner, he read his library books on the solar system. By the time he slipped into bed each night, something amazing would happen. Instead of worrying about school, Thomas thought about the solar system. Soon, the ideas in his books combined with his vivid imagination, and he was creating marvelous adventures starring the 4 zany sheep who frequently visited his dreams. There's Thomas dreaming. Their journey often began at space camp, where each sheep attended various training sessions. Like all astronauts, they had to prove that they were physically fit and very intelligent. Also, every sheep needed to demonstrate the ability to remain calm in uncomfortable situations. Their final days of training were especially challenging because they had to learn to work well as a problem-solving team. Eventually, though, all of the sheep completed their training successfully. When it came time to launch, a certain sheep needed extra encouragement to board the spacecraft, but eventually his friends persuaded him. When they were finally all buckled in, Thomas's sheep rocketed into orbit to study the solar system. Their first stop was Mercury. Since Mercury is so close to the sun, it was very hot during their visit. Fortunately, every sheep found an interesting way to keep cool while touring the planet. Next, they visited Venus. The cloud cover on this planet made it the perfect place for games like hide-and-go sheep. Some sheep, however, do a better job of hiding than others do. They waved to their home planet Earth as they blasted past it on their way to the red planet, Mars. Once there, however, the sheep could not agree on what to do. One wandered off to collect rock specimens. 2 others explored a canyon that was even bigger than the Grand Canyon on Earth. The 4th sheep spent time searching for the little green Martians he had heard about ever since he was a lamb, but of course, he didn't find any. Soon, the sheep were maneuvering carefully through the asteroid belt that separates Mars and Jupiter. Their ship spun every which way, trying to avoid the asteroids. Unfortunately, a certain sheep became dizzy and accidentally upset the gravity controls inside the rocket. And there's the ship going through the asteroids. When the sheep eventually arrived on Jupiter, the largest planet in the solar system, They each wore a bright, multicolored outfit to celebrate the colorful bands of clouds that surrounded this planet. They hadn't been exploring for long when they remembered that Jupiter's great red spot is really a giant storm in the atmosphere, and they decided they had better leave. Some sheep are afraid of storms. The sheep were very excited to inspect the famous rings around the planet Saturn. However, not all the sheep read the rulebook on ring inspection. It is important to remember when inspecting a planet's rings that they are not solid. You can see one of them crashed through the rings. As the travelers left Saturn, the fourth sheep finally had his chance to pilot the ship. This made all the other sheep a little nervous. The ride went surprisingly well, until the pilot remembered that the next planet, Uranus, is turned on its side in space. He decided that the rocket needed to turn sideways too. Not only did the sheep end up missing their stop on Uranus, but it was decided that not every sheep should be allowed in the driver's seat. They were all relieved when they landed safely on Neptune, the planet named after the Roman god of the sea. In honor of this planet's name, every sheep found a way to celebrate water while on Neptune. Some had more fun than others did. On the way to Pluto, the sheep ran into terrible trouble. Their rocket was not staying on course, and they were heading straight for a black hole. It seemed that a certain sheep had been eating his puffy cheesies near the rocket's guidance systems, and the crumbs had jammed the controls. The only way to fix the rocket was for one of the sheep to go on a dangerous spacewalk. No sheep wanted to go, so they took a vote. It was almost unanimous. And there are those cheese puffs by the controls. There's one sheep going into space to fix the rocket. Soon the puffy cheesies were locked up, and the rocket was back on course for Pluto. The sheep had already decided that since Pluto is the smallest planet in the solar system, they would each leave something behind that had been special to them when they were little lambs. One sheep left a toy racing car, and another left some building blocks. A third sheep left a book that her mother used to read to her at bedtime. The fourth sheep wanted to leave something very special, but when it actually came time to go, he had trouble giving up any of his treasures. The other 3 sheep had to make the decision for him. Finally, it was time for them to reboard the rocket ship, some more reluctantly than others, and head back to planet Earth. They had an important engagement there that they did not want to miss. He's leaving behind his teddy bear. And those are the other sheep leaving behind their belongings. Science project presentation day at Apollo Elementary School arrived with tremendous excitement, and only moments after the bell rang, the classroom was bursting with energetic children and fabulous science projects. Here are some of the science projects. One project, though, was clearly receiving more attention than any other. To everyone's surprise, Thomas volunteered to share his project first. He hoped it would be the most spectacular science project that anyone in the school, including Mr. Lunar, had ever seen, and it certainly was. Here's his cool little science project. It looks like a rover. And the end. Thank you.